Sean McKeown started performing when he was 12 years old. He can act, he can sing, tap dance, play the flute, and he can also walk the corporate tightrope. He combines his business and creative skills in his current job as artistic director of Cirque du Soleil's touring show, Dralion. It is my pleasure to welcome Sean McKeown to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, nice to meet you.
Yes.
A man of many talents.
Well, yes. Along the way, I accrued quite a few things. And interestingly, for this role that I do, it's very important to have a little bit of all of those things. But I didn't know at the time that this is where that would end up.
Because you started off in mime.
I did, yes. Yeah, I was doing, I was doing pantomime, actually.
Yes.
Slightly different thing.
Slightly different.
Yeah, slightly different thing. But I did do mime along the way as well. In pantomime, I was a 12-year-old. There in the front, I was the star of the show, quite something.
Of course you were. Do you come from a family of circus performers by any chance?
No, I don't. Very, very waspy parents, very...
Well, that's why you worked in cable television for a while, right?
There you go.
Said, son, get a
real job. Exactly.
What are you thinking?
Yeah. So I did get a real job along the way, but no, it wasn't really quite me, you know.
So you went back to this. Tell me the trajectory.
So I was acting for about 10 years, singing, dancing. Then I was out of that for about 10 years. I actually ended up working for News Corp for a while, for a cable TV company in Australia. I started doing voiceover work, which is kind of the sort of thing that an actor does to earn money when an actor needs to earn money. And from there, it just kind of led into this very corporate job. Odd.
You're not a corporate guy, but sort of a corporate guy, but you missed the creative part.
Yeah, I really did.
That really creative part, what lies in your soul.
Yeah, and...
Who conceived Dralion?
A gentleman called Guy Caron.
Oh.
He's a director that has worked a lot in Quebec. He was around during the very early days of Cirque du Soleil, and then was not, and then came back to direct Dralion for the original creation.
And it started under the big tent and is now in an arena. How did that work?
Well, we went through, the show was actually closed for 6 months, and for 3 of those months we were restaging the show. So we looked at every single element of the show. We changed a couple of the acts completely. We updated a lot of the costumes, so the entire show got a complete makeover all at the same time.
So you marry a dragon and a lion.
Yes, and the dragon in a way represents the East. So with this show we went through the 3,000 years of Chinese acrobatic tradition and then worked with our very avant-garde Cirque du Soleil way of doing things and came up with this beautiful, beautiful mythical beast, the Dralion.
And is there a message in Dralion?
Yeah, ultimately...
I thought it rhymed with scallion. That's what the PR people told me.
Hope it's still...
You are more elegant about it. You say Dralion.
Dralion. That's the French influence, you know, the lovely people from Quebec and their language. It wears off a little bit from time to time. So, and I guess the message of this show is ultimately about harmony. We have our different elements which represent different tribes in a way. And they're interacting with each other, some harmoniously, some not. And there's a message there about harmony in life, which I think is just as relevant now as any.
Sure, you bet. And it's East-West, it's cross-cultural.
Yeah. Yeah, and the show itself, I mean, we have the artists, we have about 52 artists, and they're from 14 different nationalities. So we're our own little League of Nations on tour.
And the working language in Cirque shows English?
English, yes, is English. But
great.
So, and that's good, but from time to time you'll get an artist that may just be fresh from Russia or fresh from China. So we know enough words, and we have translators, and it's amazing the languages we have access to. I'm
sure. But you know, when you draw on white, it's 3,000 years old, the tradition of Chinese acrobatic.
Yeah, and
really, I mean, has to be.
Yeah, it's amazing. It dates right back. And it's also interesting as you travel, you see things even in Mayan culture and things like that in Mexico, where you see contortion depicted and things like that. It's circus arts are very old.
So you're living where? When you're not touring?
I'm living in Buenos Aires in Argentina, which sounds very exotic.
How did you manage that?
Well, my partner of 8 years and I spent a lot of time touring and a lot of time in and out of Argentina. And for me, I'm a bit of an architecture buff. I love visual things.
Yes.
And the architecture of that city is incredible. And they've just been through a massive financial crisis, but during that time, the property is increasing in value, increasing in value. We're like, okay, we need to get in and buy.
And the passion of the people.
The fire, the Latin souls. Oh, sure. Sure, whatever
you mind?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, fine. So let's go back to how it is different staging under a tent or in an arena. You said you had to eliminate a couple acts. Is it more dangerous? Is it safer? Easier? Tougher?
Look, the touring life rhythm for us is very different under the arena as compared with under the big top. Under the arena, the pace is a lot faster, so it means that we have to be a lot more efficient in how we move from place to place, and also how we stage the show, because we still need to train, we still need to rehearse, we still need to integrate new artists.
Right.
The actual changeover itself in the show format from what we were performing in the big top to what we're performing in the arena is we need to reach that little old lady in the back row still that has the hearing problem. So,
exactly.
you know, we think about that, and it means that we really had to open all of the sight lines of the show. I mentioned before we redesigned a lot of the costumes, which was vital so that they really were, it was very clear what we were doing on stage, and also rebuild the acts.
And this is your third show, right?
It is, yeah.
Where did you start? McKeown?
I started in Alegria.
Oh,
actually.
Alegria. What was the message in Alegria? Let me remember.
It was about power, but a lot of
That's
people
right.
don't get that, because it's a power play between young and old, beautiful and not so, and light and dark. So
right.
That's
a lot of dualism in Cirque.
Absolutely.
Very much so. And Kidam, the sort of the nameless passerby. The Mr. Nobody.
Yeah, and that's Kidam has an amazing message too, because it's about all of us. We're all anonymous. We're all nobody, and yet we're all somebody. So yeah, Kidam.
Yes,
it was a
ask
pleasure.
any astronaut, and I've had many on the show, and they'll say, when you're up there and in space, and you look down at Earth, we are just little ants crawling around.
Yeah.
None of us are very important.
Yeah.
Does Guy Laliberté influence you still? Does he sit down with the artistic directors of the various shows?
Yeah, Cirque is now a very large, we have about 5,000 employees, about 1,500 artists, and at the end of the year we'll have 22 shows going around in different, either in resident or in touring shows. So we entertain a lot of people in a year, and I think that's an amazing, honourable thing. Part of that means that we have to, in order to maintain the creative vision that we've had, Guy is very heavily involved in driving that direction still. Do
you know, as artistic director, one of the artistic directors, where it's going, like 2011, 2012, what's coming up?
Yeah, we do. Every year we have an annual summit where we all get together and we look at a lot of the creative. It's very confidential, but we get the inside scoop on what's coming next for the next couple of years.
So you're not telling me, are you?
I can't, I'm sorry.
Well, I read something about Zarkana in 2012. I don't know what that meant.
Yeah, it's a show that's coming. It's going to tour, but in a very different way. It's starting out in the Radio City Music Hall. It's a massive show in New York. Yeah, and then they'll go to the Kremlin Theater in Moscow, right beside the Kremlin. It's unheard of to have somebody in there for a few months. And then the next city, I'm not quite sure where they're going.
Okay, so you know a little bit. You can tell a little bit. Yeah. Zarkana coming 2012, something like that.
There's a big Michael Jackson show coming out as well.
I read about that.
It's huge. It's going to be incredible.
It will be. Yeah. And will that be Vegas, or do you know, or will it be in a tent? Or the tents are still happening?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
We still have quite a few shows touring the world in tents. I guess the reality of the arena environment is we can access a lot more cities, which enables us to go and go to people that maybe haven't seen Cirque before, which is
could be less expensive too. I don't know about the traveling part, but the touring with the Grand Chapiteau and setting it up and finding a spot.
Yeah, we travel with about 18 huge trailers, and the big tops, I don't know how many they travel with, but with a lot more. There's a lot more infrastructure.
18 huge trailers.
Yeah, just for our show. The set is amazing. There's all kinds of things hidden in there that come out, and I bet. Yeah.